Hey guys, welcome to my November TBR. I am a little bit sad to be leaving October behind. My reading month has been going really well. There's still a few days left, so I'm hoping it also ends on a good note. But it's time to be thinking about what I'm going to be reading in November. I have a few books here that I'm kind of planning on reading in the mood for. I'm also just gonna pick a few out from my shelves as we go here. Once again, I view this more as a pile of possibilities. This is what I'm in the mood for at the moment. It's not the end of the world if I don't read these books, but I always kind of like to let you know what I'm currently in the mood for, what I'm hoping to read for the month, etc. So the first book I'm going to talk about is actually one that I'm going to carry over. I don't always talk about books that I'm carrying over, but Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell is my Victober read, and I'm almost halfway through. My hope is to be halfway through by the end of October and then finish this in November. I didn't honestly think I was going to finish this in October, so if I can finish it by the end of November, that would be great. I'd be like on par for what I was hoping for. So far I am enjoying this book, but not as much as North and South. I'm not picking it up a ton. I'm kind of forcing myself to read it a bit. Like, I'm not hating it, but other books are catching my attention over this one, whereas North and South, I was picking that up over other books. So our main character is Molly Gibson. I can't remember how old she is at the beginning of the book, like 10, 12. We follow her at that age for a few chapters, and then I think for a good portion, maybe the rest of the book, she's around 17, and her father is a doctor and he's a widow. I think her mother died when she was like 3 or 4. She doesn't really remember her, and they're in this like weird position socially where like her dad, they don't really fit in with like the well-to-do people, but they also don't really fit in with like the poor people. And yeah, I don't know, different things go on. We follow Molly as she goes to a few different places, does a few different things, meets a few different people. I don't want to say a whole lot. I guess it's not super spoilery, but her dad does remarry in the book, and so far I'm really not enjoying her stepmother, which is partly why I'm not picking it up. Like, I don't like not liking characters in books unless they're like a really bad character, then I kind of like to dislike them. But the stepmom, like, didn't invite her own daughter to the wedding because she didn't want her own daughter's beauty to like take away from her beauty. Yeah, so a few red flags there. But overall, I am enjoying the story. I do like Molly. Curious to see where the rest of it goes. So hopefully I'll finish this in November. Then I always have a Patreon pick of the month. So every month I pick someone on my Patreon to be my patron of the month. They get to choose a book for me to read, and if they want to buddy read a book with me, they can. So my patron of the month is Charlene, and she has picked My Plain Jane. This is book 2 in the Lady Janie's series. And okay, so this is a Jane Eyre retelling, reimagining kind of thing. The first book was Lady Jane Grey, and it was very like historical, fantasy, definitely alternate history stuff going on. And Jane Eyre is obviously a fictional character. So I'm curious to see where this goes. This is book 2 in a 3-book series, and I really want to finish the series because I enjoyed book 1 a lot. So hopefully book 2 is good. I've heard good things about the Jane series, less good things about the Mary series, but I'm going to continue it, see where we go from there. For some reason, I grabbed a book off of my Wrap TBR and I put it onto my like November TBR stack, and I don't remember why. So we're gonna unwrap this, see what book it is and why I wanted to read it. I don't remember. Oh, okay. This is so random, I totally forgot. Finding Lady Enderley by Joanna Davidson Politano. I've heard that this one is like super gothic feeling, and I have really enjoyed Joanna Davidson Politano's other books, and this one just so happens to be the next one in the publication order that I was going to read anyway, so it checks a bunch of boxes. Raina is a rag woman in London's East End when a handsome stranger appears in a dark alley, offering her a glittering smile and a chance for adventure. I don't know, but I trust her writing. It's all Victorian era, and yeah, the other ones definitely have a bit of a gothic feeling, so definitely want to try this. I can't remember who recommended this one on my gothic recommendations video, but thank you. I'm gonna read it. Probably. As soon as I put books on my TBR though, then I instantly don't want to read them. Another book I have here is I really want to read book 2 in the Dead City series. This is a middle grade series where, like, I think it's just in Manhattan. There are zombies, and our main character, her name is Molly, and she likes to work in a morgue. I think her mother, who died years before, worked in this morgue, and therefore Molly is interested in it. And a bunch of stuff went down in book 1, so I'm curious about continuing the series. I may read this in the end of October yet, I'm not sure, but I have that on my stack as well. Normally I would also pick a book for the Read Your Bookshelf challenge, but the prompt for November is just to read a book in a different genre, and my October book is nonfiction, like a historical nonfiction type book, so I can almost do anything for the next one. So I think I'm just going to leave it open this month, and whichever book I want to fill in there, I will. So I have to interject because I just barely said it wrong. The prompt for November is not to read a different genre, it is to read a different time period. So Devil in the White City is my book for November. This one is set in 1893, Chicago's World Fair. So I need to pick something that's in a different time period. This is Victorian. I still have quite a few options from my November TBR that will work, so I'm still not going to pick a specific book, but I'm going to keep it open. Just needed to clear that up so other people aren't doing the wrong thing for the prompt like I almost did. So that's my plan for that. Then I have a couple more books that I want to grab. There's actually quite a few books on my shelves that I would like to read, but I got a big enough stack here. I could have picked even more. I am going to be rereading Awaking Wonder by Sally Clarkson. This book is going to be the book club book in my homeschool membership, so every season, so November, February, May, and August, we read a book together, and I loved this one the first time I read it. Let's see if you guys can see all of my highlights, and then like I doggy-eared a bunch of pages. This was pre book tabs for me, but yeah, this is just one time through reading it, so I imagine this time it's going to get even more highlighted. So I'm really looking forward to rereading this book because I loved it so much the first time. November is nonfiction November. I don't actually follow a book olive. She is the one that runs it every year, but I know about it. I'm assuming it's happening again in November, and I'm going to read A Charm of Goldfinches and Other Wild Gatherings. I've come to realize, when seeing how bad I'm failing at my nonfiction books I wanted to read this year, that I generally only read Christian nonfiction. If it's not Christian nonfiction, I have a hard time with it, or like I have a hard time prioritizing it is what I do. But this one is super short. It's just like every other page only has words, and it just talks about the different types of groupings of animals and what they're called. So I feel like this one will be an easy box to check, and I can say I participated without having to put in a lot of effort. That being said, like, this is nonfiction and I have other nonfiction books on the go, but this is my like official nonfiction November contribution. I recently did a book haul and I shared What Katie Did Next by Susan Coolidge, and this is book 2 after What Katie Did, and this is also one of my books for my DIY literature degree that I am doing. So this is a book that was written during the Victorian era, but a children's book. So I feel like this one should be a fast read. I really enjoyed What Katie Did, and it'll be a good way to check a box for my degree. This one I'm assuming we follow Katie to London. Let's see here. Some people invite Katie to join them on a year-long trip around Europe. Okay, well that's cool. I will be traveling Europe in November through this book. Okay, different vein, but also a Victorian era book. The Man Who Was Thursday, A Nightmare by G.K. Chesterton. I'm so curious about this book. I haven't read the back. I don't really care. I just want to read it. I didn't realize when I bought it that it was like a nightmare. I have no idea. But I trust G.K. Chesterton, so I'm going to give it a try. It's a psychological thriller that was written I don't know exactly when this one was written. It really bothers me when books, the copyright is like the date of this edition. I feel like on the copyright page, they should also have the original copyright. 1908, that means it falls out of my Victorian era. Oh, well, I might still count it. We'll see. We'll see what I do with this. And then my author that I want to study in this next like year is C.S. Lewis. So I thought I would grab On Stories and other essays on literature because it's just the C.S. Lewis that's on my shelf that's really calling to me right now. I am also wanting to read through Narnia. I am just contemplating something that I might do with that. So once I figure out what I'm doing there, then I'm just gonna like dive through and read that series, I think. Not sure if it will be November or not. But On Stories, this one has how many essays? Oh, 20 essays about a variety of different things. There's one on The Hobbit, one on science fiction. Interesting. George Orwell, Dorothy L. Sayers, Lord of the Rings. Huh, very curious. Going to read that, probably. And then I recently got this book when I went to my used bookstore. This is A Nun in the Closet by Dorothy Gilman, and I don't know, I just have kind of always been intrigued by nuns, and if you're gonna give me nuns and mystery and Dorothy Gilman, like if this is written like Mrs. Polifax, like it's gonna be hilarious, and I just want some of that in my life. Then also in the mystery vein and Victorian vein, I really want to start the Mrs. Jeffries series. So this one was on my autumn TBR, which I'm not doing well. This is my autumn TBR stack, which has gotten very rearranged by the 3-year-old, but most of the books are still on there. This is 3 books in here. If I could just read one of them, I'd be happy. But if I enjoy it, maybe I'll continue. But the first book is Miss Jeffries Takes Stock. Right, this is not actually book 1. I think this is book, wait a minute. I need to look this up. I might actually have book 3. I think these are 4, 5, 6, and I might own book 3. So I need to check that out. Yes, Change of Plans. I'm pretty sure these books don't have to be read in order, but I want to read them in order as much as I can. So I don't have books 1 and 2, but I have number 3, The Ghost and Mrs. Jeffries. Sometimes a housekeeper's job is murder. If you guys think, like if you've read this and you think I need to read book 1 and 2 first, let me know. I can always change my plans, but currently my plan is to start with book 3, and I own this book plus another one plus these 3, and I've never even read any of them. I just have a feeling I'm going to like them. I don't know if that ever happens to you guys, but I feel like I will, and I hope I will. So yeah, a lot of like different kind of mystery vibes going on here. 2 more books that caught my attention, and then this one is also from my autumn TBR. This is A King's Feather by Amy Earls. This is a fantasy story, and we just had our first snowfall here yesterday, and this just made me feel like snow because the cover is mostly white, and so I thought it would be fitting. So I'm going to add this. This one is, the little blurb on the top says, "Rescue Mom, handle the prophesied power, and don't fall in love." Sure, no problem at all. So it is a Christian YA fantasy, I believe. And the last book is one that I started last winter, and that is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. This is also from my autumn TBR. So I'm 320 pages into, I think 1,000. It's almost exactly 1,000 pages. So this is set in 1806 in England, and there are magicians, but they don't like do anything anymore. And yeah, I don't know, I was really enjoying it when I read it, but it was warming up and it's just felt like a cold read to me. And so now that the weather is cold, because our main character, he is always cold and by a fireplace, and that felt really weird to be reading as it was like nice outside, but now that that's the vibe that I'm living in, it feels like a good time to read this. So I've been trying to keep my TBR small the last few months. It didn't really work so much for this, especially since I've been doing so much like mood reading. There's so many books that I've read in October that were not on my TBR, but we'll see. We'll see what happens for November, but currently that's my stack. So hopefully I'll get to all of them, and maybe all of them and more. We can be optimistic. So let me know what you guys plan on reading in the month of November, because we're like living in October still. It is still October. It feels weird to be saying the next month. Yeah, and if there's like any of these that you think are really going to be like 5-star books for me, I would love to hear it. Thanks so much for being here, guys.